All right. Huh? Everybody hear me okay? All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you for choosing us for your session at this time. Hopefully we keep you guys uh, active and moving because yeah, it's after lunch. So welcome to Adaptive Car Seats, the missing link in 24-hour positioning. Um, so just to introduce ourselves, I'm Connie Nieberding, and this is my coworker, Bill Danner. We're an OTPT team from the Perlman Center at Cincinnati Children's in Cincinnati. And I've been a pediatric PT for the last 15 years. I've worked at Perlman for the last 12. I'm an ATP as well, so I specialize in complex rehab technology, 24-hour positioning equipment, wheelchair seating and positioning, and adaptive ability. And then I'm also a CPST, which is a child passenger safety technician, so basically the car seat lady. Um, and I do evaluations and deliveries for those. And our primary demographic for us is children and adults with cerebral palsy and neuromotor disorders.
And I'm William Danner. You can call me Bill. I've been in occupational therapy for almost 20 years, every setting except schools. But I really didn't find my home until I made it to the Perlman Center. So I've been there about 8 years. I'm our lead car seat therapist. So I do all the triages of all the referrals that come in. And I'm also CPST certified.
So just to be clear, we have no financial interests or affiliations, and all laws are based on US laws and regulations. So if you're from a different country, your laws and regulations may be different than what they are for us. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background on the CPST. So CPST, like I said before, Child Passenger Safety Technician. So we are certified for installing commercial car seats and educating on child passenger safety. Which this includes making sure you don't have like projectiles in the vehicle and things like that. So we are actually certified through NHTSA and Safe Kids Worldwide. So it's an annual thing that we have to do. And we actually have to do like some CEUs and things like that as well. So really quick on the learning objectives. So one of our learning objectives is going to be to define 24-hour positioning and the functional application to adaptive car seats. Identify 3 components for a proper fit of an adaptive car seat. Identify at least 2 areas of education for families when they're using an adaptive car seat. And describe the basic process of installation of an adaptive car seat. So let's talk about 24-hour positioning. Tamara Kittleson has on her website of Posture 24/7 that 24-hour positioning is a non-invasive way to support the health and well-being of persons who have difficulty changing positions easily and frequently throughout the day and night. So this is just a really good like graphic just to kind of show you thinking about postural control and how many things postural control goes into. So we like to think about, mobility and transportation obviously is one of our number ones for us. Play and function, interaction, connection, independent ADLs. Obviously, independence is huge. We want our clients to be as independent as possible. Development, education, work. So are they able to access their school environment? Are they able to access their work environment? Rest, make sure they have a good position at rest. Pressure relief, so thinking about also nighttime bed positioning, things like that. Also looking at for our little ones, commercial versus medical. A lot of times we're able to adapt things when they're little that might be commercial, and we don't have to jump to that expensive medical piece of equipment yet. And then for a lot of our families that we serve, is how many pieces of equipment do we have? If I have something that can do two different positions, I'm going to maybe go for that because they don't have all the room in their house to fit, a sander, a gait trainer, all the wheelchair, like all the different things. So just something that we like to make sure we think about. So 24-hour positioning, the ultimate idea is for it to improve function, health, communication, and cognitive skills across all positioning. So sitting, standing, lying. We want to maximize comfort, enhance the ability to participate in whatever the desired role is at that time, and engage in meaningful occupations across their chosen environments. So obviously, as you guys know, If we can't sit up, then we can't see our environment. We can't observe our environment. We can't explore our environment. We can't interact with others. And for kids, what's their main goal? Their main goal is play. They can't play, they can't grow, they can't learn. So for us, we like to make sure that the equipment supports participation. So providing postural supports for them to be upright, provide positioning for safety, mobility to allow exploration. Early mobility is key. Provide visual opportunities so that they can make that connection. And then provide a continuum of care to support ongoing growth, learning, and participation. And for us at the Perlman Center, we have what we call the Perlman experience. So for us, we want to make sure that we're giving them the opportunity to participate in activities they would not normally participate in. So that might be for us modifying a sled so they can go sledding for the first time. I have a family, they took a bath chair and they put it on snowboards. They took a snowboard, cut it in half and attached it, and so that their kid could go sledding. Like that's something that most kids with disabilities and even adults have never had the opportunity to do. So that's something that we really like to push for us is the Perlman experience. So talking again about 24-hour positioning, again, thinking about that postural control. How are they positioned 24 hours a day? So you want to think about what are they like when they get up in the morning? What are they like when they go to school? What are they like when they eat? What are they like when they go to the bathroom? What's nap time look like? What's dinner time look like? What does it look like when they want to play with their brother on the floor? So making sure you're thinking about all of those different pieces. I know some of you might be familiar with Sunny Hill. They have a really great graphic on their website of just how, sitting, standing, walking, all those things are things that we need to think about. How are they being positioned and how are they being supported? Technical difficulties. So for us, when we first meet a family, whether they're 3 months old or they're 35 years old, we also want to talk about their current needs, but also their future needs. So we want to make sure the families understand the benefits of 24-hour positioning. We discuss daily activities. I usually say, what's a normal day look like for you? And then I usually get a lot more information than if I ask specific questions, because they can say, oh, well, usually they wake up at 7 and then we do this and then we do this and different things. We want to talk about their daily activity, recreation. Are they playing, adapted baseball? Are they playing adaptive soccer? Sometimes you have to have different things for those types of activities. And then for us, obviously, transportation. Transportation is huge. And we really feel like it's been an area that's really been ignored because it really needs to be considered as part of like the 24-hour positioning. And then how do you plan for growth? I mean, a kid's needs at age 3, a person's needs at 15, and a person's needs at 30 are all completely different. It might be, well, I want to be able to get into my sister's house. Okay, how do we get you there? Things like that. Or, for adults, are they working? Are they in a college program, a transition program? Are they working full time in the community? All of those things are things that we need to consider, even with car seats. And we always want to err on the side on needing growth width-wise and height-wise, especially those teenagers, those boys, they hit 15 and all of a sudden they grow 4 inches and you're like, okay. So make sure you account for growth. If they measure 12 wide, think about putting them more in a 14 or a 16 wide because they're going to grow, especially different diagnoses. We're going to talk a lot about behavioral kids. A lot of children who have autism or seizures, they will gain 30, 40 pounds very quickly because of medications. So something to make sure you guys are considering when you're doing things like this. And then for us, best practice, patient and family-centered care. So like I've said before, we're going to talk about developmental positioning. So for us at the Perlman Center, we see kids all the way from 1 month old to 95 years old. So for us, we always want to think about when they're really little, talking about starting that weight bearing, range of motion, postural control and strengthening, maybe exploring bracing, and then home activities. When they get a little bit older, we'll talk about feeding, bathing, sleeping, play ADLs, computer access and AAC. We do that as well. So we want to make sure they're able to have a consistent yes, no, so they can participate in their environment. We also do a lot of vision, sensory processing. We do have a whole entire team that does cortical visual impairment. So that's something else we're considering as well. And then obviously early mobility, part of normal developmental sequence. So we're getting kids in power chairs as early as 6 months old. Gait trainers, standards, wheelchairs, making sure they have the ability to move within their environment. And then obviously looking at manual chair, power chair, in some cases both. A lot of my teenagers, they need that backup manual wheelchair in addition to their power chair. And then recreational, we actually have a really great baseball league in Cincinnati for the Joe Nuxall League. And they do a really great job of that. But that's something that we need to consider. Are they going to be able to push their wheelchair around the field? Can they do things like that? And then obviously transfers and transportation. So thinking about body mechanics, patient lifts. Some nursing agencies are now requiring that you have a Hoyer lift in the home if your kid weighs more than 30 pounds. So we are starting to see an increase in requests for Hoyer lifts because the kids are hitting 30 pounds. And then obviously we'll talk more about the car seats and tie downs. And then obviously we actually start the conversation about the need for a adaptive van or ramp or some type of adaptive vehicle pretty early with our kiddos. So just to give you guys like a little bit of an idea of like what we're looking at for the different ages. So birth to 3, we adapt a lot of baby equipment, foreplay, standard walker, bath chair, car seat, braces, seating for function, early access, wheelchair, bed positioning, and then recreational bike and swing. Preschool pretty much stays the same. The other thing we kind of add into it is that AAC component, and sometimes that high-low seat because they're no longer able to fit into a commercial high chair. And then they're at school. They need to be able to communicate and do their schoolwork. And then as an adult, a lot of times, like I said, we talk about work, integrating their AT into what they're already doing, and things like that. So car seats and 24-hour positioning. What we found is that most of our PM&R docs are not considering car seats as part of the normal equipment prescription. They're not looking at a car seat when they're looking at 24-hour positioning. And for us, we're a regional assistive technology center. So we have some kids that are in their car seats for 6 to 8 hours a day just to attend one appointment. They might be driving 4 hours one way to come see us. So that's no different than sitting in a wheelchair 6 to 8 hours a day. So just something to consider. For us, we live in the city of Cincinnati, or we are in the city of Cincinnati. We have a lot of kids that are transported in Ubers or taxis. So once they outgrow that pumpkin seat, really hard to get in places. And then for most of our patient population, whether they're high muscle tone or low muscle tone, commercial car seats place them in a destructive posture. And if you're in that destructive posture for 6 to 8 hours a day, you're asking for trouble. So why are we not considering as part of the positioning system? Well, there's lots of reasons. This is your slide. No. Okay. So what we found was that, like I said before, unsafe transportation. A lot of the families have a lack of access to wheelchairs, accessible vans, vehicles, poor positioning in commercial car seats, seizures, pressure wounds, and we've actually been getting an increase in behavioral patients. So we're getting a lot of decreased tolerance and elopement issues. I've actually had quite a few families come in and say, "Oh, I just lay my kid in the back seat and I just stick the buckles around them." It's like, that's not a safe way to transport to places. The other thing too is that, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but car seats expire. This is kind of a newer thing. It's usually 7 to 10 years, depending on the manufacturer. So I would have families like, "Oh, I had this for my daughter 20 years ago." No, that's not a safe car seat any longer. And then for us, I would say another complaint from our families is head control. So they're not able to maintain normal head control in a commercial car seat. And then seizures or vomiting. So a lot of times if the kids are really sensitive and they have a harness on, it presses on their stomach and they vomit more often in the car. And then we're getting more and more escape artists. And these are kids that will escape the car seat and they will either bash out the back window, try to open the door and escape on the highway, or they will attack the driver or other passengers. So we're gonna kind of go over the 4 basic types of car seats, just as a review.
At least 30 minutes.
Yeah. I sent one to them during the deadline, but if not, my contact information is at the end, so I can hand it to you. So just to kind of go over, so you have rear facing, which most people know is the pumpkin seat, the convertible, which goes from 5 to 65 pounds, combination, which is usually forward facing only, which is 22 to 65 pounds, and then the booster is around 40 to 120. Best practice is that you use a car seat until the maximum height or weight recommended by the manufacturer. So brief history of car seats. It's one of my favorite pictures in the whole thing. The car seat was first proposed in 1921. It was actually a burlap sack that was just attached with some ropes to the back of the seat. And then eventually they introduced the first booster seat, which was actually similar to what you see in the picture. So a metal frame with a canvas seat that installed in the front seat so the kid could see better. In 1959, the first 3-point belt was introduced as safety was starting to become a concern. The mortality rate for a child in a motor vehicle accident was 4 to 5 times higher than our rate is today, because they would just fly through the windshield. The first actual safety seat wasn't introduced until 1962, and it has been modified several times over the years. 1964 is when the first 5-point harness and rear-facing considerations happened. There was a dad that finally realized, maybe we should try rear-facing, and it really made a difference. 1971 was the first federal standards. First car seat law was actually passed in Tennessee, and only 38 years ago did we actually have laws mandating these. So when do you consider an adaptive car seat? Most of the time you're going to consider weight versus medical needs. Most commercial car seats will only go up to a 5-point harness for 6 to 65 pounds. They'll go 100 for boosters. Adaptive car seats go anywhere from 30 pounds to 230 pounds. So it usually will last your patients quite a long time. So we're going to talk about the proper fit of an adaptive car seat. So we're going to talk about the fit test. So this is the harness fit, so making sure that it hits all the right points. So a harness is meant to restrain in a crash in order to keep on the bony parts of your body. You want to make sure your harness slots are correct. So for forward facing, it's at or above the shoulders. For rear facing, it's at or below the shoulders. And you want to make sure that when you pinch the harness, you're not able to pinch any of that material, and you want to make sure they don't have excessive clothing like coats and things like that. You want to look at head control and trunk control. I'm going to turn it over to Bill, and he's going to go over the car seat triage process.
If I talk too loud, let me know. That's the one thing I'm worried about, because sometimes I talk too loud. So let me know. So we're going to start by just giving a brief history of the car seat triage process. At Perlman, I'm going to kind of show you how it's evolved throughout the time. In 2016, Perlman and Trauma Services teamed together to begin a triage process that combines CPST and therapist training to meet the challenges of providing car seats. For those of you who don't know, and probably most of you don't, Trauma Services is a part of the Division of Pediatric Surgery at Children's Hospital. They provide treatment for injury care, prevention, and research. So car seats is a big deal for them. So there was a challenge that they saw in the availability of clinicians to write appropriate letters of medical necessity, and also in the educated provided to families. CPST training doesn't allow for writing of letters of medical necessity. For funding purposes, the credentials of an RN, OT, PT, they're needed. And at that time, there was only one nurse who was dual certified CPST and nursing. So she was providing letters for basically the entire hospital, which wasn't sustainable. And then when she, retired, it really wasn't sustainable. So we need to find solutions for that problem. At that time, we had some therapists that were writing some letters, but they lacked the CPST knowledge for the proper selection and the proper equipment. And then ATP suppliers, they can process the paperwork for authorization and funding, but they usually lack the experience of installing these seats, and they're usually prohibited to install them anyway. So those are the challenges. So the challenges led to a collaboration. And the collaboration was aimed to increase proper use and selection of adaptive car seats. And through the combined efforts, Trauma Services and Performance Center basically split down into these two processes. Performance took all the positioning clients, all those with positioning challenges, where Trauma Services took the clients mainly with the commercial needs, and really everybody else. Also, Trauma Services at that time provided all the follow-up with the families. They installed the seats. If they couldn't do it, the families were pretty much referred to fit stations, which are places where a CPST technician can install your car seat. That was initially what we did. But there were problems with that process. Mainly the therapists were not CPST trained. So, and I was one of them, we lacked the knowledge needed for safety education installation of these seats. So we had this perfect product that fit all the postural needs of the client, but sometimes it wasn't compatible with the family circumstances, the car, and all those situations that CPST training will teach you. Also, follow up, and that's usually, all the time. Follow up was an issue with the families. We'd give them these seats and they wouldn't follow up. So we didn't know if they were using the seats safely or not. And finally, the local fit stations, they weren't comfortable with installing these specialized car seats. There's stuff that they hadn't seen. It's not in the CPST original training. You have to have additional course just to go over some of these seats. So they were finding these seats that families were coming in and they said, whoa, they didn't want to touch it. So through those challenges, it kind of proved to us that the training piece, the training for the family in the critical areas of installation safety was necessary to the whole process, and it was billable time, which was a good bonus that we could spend with families. So this is our revised process. It went through a lot of different revisions, but this is mainly what we came up with. It's kind of a down and dirty thing to look at. So 2 therapists were CPST trained, us 2. You're looking at them. And we started having car seat clinics pretty much where all we do all day is car seat evaluations. And that can be, 6 to 7 a piece if we're
7 a day.
yeah. So to meet that need, a lead car seat therapist position, that's me, was created. I process all the triages and the evals that come in. And because of that, 95% of the deliveries occur with a CPS trained therapist, 95%. So that's pretty good. And so when we changed our process, this kind of was the results. As you can imagine, improved efficiency of time from the referral to the evaluation to the people getting their equipment, which is a big bonus. We were able to increase the safety equipment awareness of the families because Connie and I are able to educate the families from the whole process, from the eval all the way through installation. All the clinics at Children's, a lot of them that, have access to families that with this need can share the resources now with the families that weren't there before. We're seeing a huge increase in the sensory and behavioral patients. So that was a result of this. The need was there, but we really didn't know it until we provided for that population. And we're seeing a huge increase in that now. And we're able to increase the funding authorization for these seats, because the more we do, the more we learn how that works. And that's kind of what I'm going to go through here. I'm going to just discuss a little bit about our car seat eval. This is our template, and this isn't the whole thing. This is just parts that I kind of just drew out of it to show you what we've added and how it's evolved a little bit. Now, I put here in my notes that there's 2 main areas we focus on, but that's not true. But it helps me with my mind to figure it's going to be either a behavioral child or a positional child. It just helps me in my mind because we know that a lot of times it's both, right? It's not either or. But the template pretty much follows it one way or the other. If it's both, of course, we're always looking at the positioning needs of the client. And the positioning, it's a lot like a wheelchair eval or a seating eval, where it goes through all those different areas. And I'll get into more specifics that you get for car seats, but that's one area. But if it's behavioral, which I deal with primarily, you want to look at the elopement risk, the things that Connie was talking about, safety behaviors, these really severe behaviors where the kid's getting out of a seat and attacking his little brother or sister, or the girl's trying to push the gas pedal with her hand while the mom's driving on the highway. I had that the other day, and it's like, I just can't imagine, being in the car and having that happen. It's a huge safety risk for the kids and the families. So we go through transportation considerations, which is something we did before. We focus mainly on the type of car, but we get more in depth now with our CPST training. So transportation considerations now would be the number of car seats in the car, the types of passengers, the seatbelt types, the latch setup, medical issues of the kids, because that kind of affects how you're positioning a kid in the car seat. And by that, I'm meaning like if a kid has a trach or a G-tube, those kind of considerations. And like Connie said, with the 24-hour positioning piece, the time in the car seat for these appointments. Some kids are in the car hours a day just going, traveling to Children's Hospital just to see us. So that's a huge factor. Measurements, obviously all the basic measurements, the classic measurements I would say that you have for seating, but more emphasis is on hip width because these seats don't get any wider. So if you have a kid and have a seat that doesn't have enough growth in it, you're going to be in trouble in a couple of years because it's one of these things where, it may get funded or it may not. So that's one thing to really keep in the back of your head. Also, there's some custom measurements you'll need if you really get into this later on for some of the Merit products, where they have like a really custom fit vests that these kids need. And you really have to know the measurements well or else it won't fit. We take all the things that aren't even on here, put into a nice little paragraph. So anybody who wants to deny this can read it and see all the things that we talk about, but they still deny it. So it doesn't matter. But we put it there anyway. And then we go through the equipment, focusing on the safest and most cost effective. So through our efforts, the funding approvals have increased in these car seats to roughly 90-95%. So it's important to know, though, if you're going through, if you're going to start this kind of program, that you're going to get denials. I mean, that's just part of the process. I would say, almost all of them. 70% would not be too low to say or too high to say.
What, denials?
Yeah, denials.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're going to be writing appeals. So, and it's your duty to follow that all the way through the process. So, and we found, once again, 90-95% if you fight for it, they get funded. So, and we continue to notice increased funding difficulties with certain private insurances where they can't be approved no matter what. So also knowing alternative funding is needed. And this, as we do this, we just project that this growth is just going to increase. In 2016, we had 70 referrals per year for car seats. By 2022, there's 850 per year. So we're expecting this to grow, keep growing to 900 plus. And these are some of the reasons, and you pretty much have gone over a lot of them. There's more awareness at Children's now for our program. There's more, we're able to increase the success of the funding. There's more post-COVID clients, whereas before, traveling your car really wasn't that, that big a deal, 2 years ago or in 2020, 2022. But now all these kids are coming back and they're in their car a lot more. So the car seat's a lot more pertinent to them. Just the basic growth of the client too, where they transition from a commercial piece of equipment to a specialized piece of equipment. Mainly the increase though is the process that we put in place and the increased awareness. So now I'm just going to go through pretty quickly some basic considerations that I share with our families regarding the installation of car seats. It's not rocket science, really. What? Oh, there you go. Yeah, that is a funny picture. You're right. I want to make sure that families know how serious this is. If it's not installed properly, this car seat becomes a projectile. If the kid is not fit properly inside the car seat, then the kid could get injured or even die. So, but it's also important to know that adaptive car seats are installed the same way as commercial ones. So not to be intimidated, just to be educated on this. And it's important that they know that because they're going to be moving these seats sometimes, especially with the behavioral kids. They'll need different cars, that they're going to be needing. It's very rare that you get 2 car seats for all the cars in your family to be approved. So sometimes you're going to have to be moving these. So they're going to have to install it sooner or later. I just tell them that all car seats come with a user manual that should be kept with the car seat at all time. Usually has a pocket, and sometimes it's mandatory in some states for this to be the case. So also there's these handy QR codes that we all know about that you can look online and just hit that code with your phone, and it'll show you everything you need to know about installing a safe car seat. So just know your manual and your car manual. Other small things, not really small things, but things that I tell the family, knowing the year and make of your car. Because if it's before 2002, the seatbelts were not mandated to be ALR, which is automatic locking retractors. They weren't mandated to have that in their car seat or in their seatbelt. Also, the latch was not mandatory at that time. So if you have a car older than 2002, you might have to have those installed in your car, and they can be reinstalled in your car. There, I got it that time. So the top tether is important because sometimes it's forgotten, especially in a car seat that's installed using the seatbelt. So you can see just in this picture here, just how much more the head travels without the top tether. Makes a huge difference. All you have to do is watch a video on this and you'll see what I'm talking about, how violently a kid is thrown forward and how they can hit their heads on objects more without the top tether. So that's important. These are some of the areas that you can see the top tether because it's not really cut and dry. It's just to be familiar with your car. Here is also to know where your lower anchors are. That's more, well, for car seats, they're installed that way with the latch because more and more are installed that way. And once again, they're hard to find sometimes. So just to know where they're at and pretty much to know your car seat manual. So I'm going to go through a couple of our recommended car seats right here that we go through. These are, let's see, these are the frequently recommended car seats. These are pretty much the companies that we use. It's not an exhaustive list, but these are the main ones we use. It's important to know these are US products, pretty much, so they have different standards. There's different countries for like Canada, for instance, which are, and for Europe, which has stricter standards. I know that you want to go there, or did you want to go over or not?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So at the very end there is the Roosevelt. It's a very versatile seat. I was just talking to a gentleman over there how great a seat it is for a lot of kids because it can go from 25 to 100 pounds. So very versatile. The main thing I want to mention about that, though, is it has a scoliosis pad. Connie uses this really well. You can actually pad it up, carve it out for those kids with scoliosis, and it's crash tested. Obviously the seat is, but the scoliosis pad is crash tested because sometimes you can't add anything to these seats. You're not allowed. So
That is crash tested with the padding behind the back. Any other car seat, you're not allowed to add anything behind the head, behind the back, or underneath the bottom. So it's really nice, and I've had to get really creative. I had a kiddo with spina bifida that had an apex of his spine, and I basically created a corn pad out of all the padding. I added it all up and carved a giant hole out of it in order for him to not have pressure in his car seat.
That being said, one of the challenges is it's a big seat. So not all families can fit this in their car. Speaking of big seats, we move on to the Spirit.
Hate the Spirit.
Just called the Big Mama. Usually that's what we call it because it is huge. But that, that size is great if you have a kid that's really wide because you can see the base is flat. So you can get a pretty bigger kid there. I'm thinking kids with Down syndrome. You have that kind of shape that you really couldn't fit in something that's more narrow. Has great options. As you can see, she's kind of showing you all those different options. The pommel, all those things.
Laterals.
Those can all be taken off too. So it can look like the Roosevelt if you wanted to. But the challenge in this seat is, and I talked to, Inspired by Drive, they were here and I talked to one of the engineers. The straps just are really hard to get right. They're very hard to adjust, and you guys can come up and kind of see
the neck. So a lot of kids don't like it because it's all up in their space.
Yeah. So if I see this on my
The Roosevelt, it's at the base. So it's easier.
The Roosevelt, yeah. Yes, it's a lot easier. Roosevelt, I would say, yeah, it's a lot easier to use in Spirit. But once again, it offers a lot of positioning options that most car seats don't. So just hard to set up, I would say. Anything else you wanted to say?
A lot of pieces and parts can break. I've had a few of these come back in and I'm like, what in the heck you been doing in your car seat? Because like this is like broken off and this is bent. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can with the padding. So with the padding, what I will sometimes do is like.
Right, no laterals.
I use a turkey carving knife, and I just carve out the padding and add it on the side. Yeah. So you can, but it's a little different. It's different.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not external, it's more built in, whereas this is external.
So move on to the carrot. It's a Conveyed or ETAC product. It's a great seat if you need the child to recline. Because these two, both carrots, the only ones that do that up here.
It pretty much can.
It's hard with the straps on it,
The
but
straps are on it, but anyway, it can
fine.
like be 180 degrees flat. So
it's airline approved. So if you want a car seat on airlines, there you go. Has lots of growth in it. Great accessories like leg rest, tray. It's very easy to install. It's lightweight.
I really
And
like the pads.
I like the pads too, and I like the
Go
buckle
around.
piece. The buckle piece is great in that thing.
Yeah, it's nice and big. So if you have kids who have tubes and things like that, sometimes it's nice because it puts pressure over the whole entire area versus like one area. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you use the seatbelt with this one. So yes, you have the 5-point, but you actually put the seatbelt over top of them. So if they're an escape artist, you usually have to use like an aftermarket, like a Buckle Boss or something like that, which they can get off Amazon for like $20.
But they do have an escape vest for that, escape proof vest. So that's cool. But I
But not the seatbelt.
haven't used it. And just one more thing about that. One of the cons, the challenges with the seatbelt is sometimes, the trach placement. Some of these kids with trachs, it's tricky because where it hits it, the seatbelt, it's right there. Did you just say that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, the only thing I was gonna say is, one issue that I do have with the Carrot 3 is, you can only use so many of the extension pieces. You can only use the 4-inch extension or the 2-inch extension one at a time. You can't use them combined. So a lot of times my kids will outgrow this in harness height, and then they're not heavy enough for the Carrot 3 booster. So then I have to go to a different car seat. So they tend to outgrow this a little faster. One note just from experience.
So moving on to the big brother, the
But
Carrot 3
everybody likes it.
booster. Wider base for a taller kid, accommodates larger, taller individuals. It reclines too. You can have a buckle piece, not like its younger brother, but kind of smaller,
See how
where it doesn't have,
flat.
this one doesn't have, but you can have that buckle piece added to it. But one of the challenges, and Connie first brought this up, and I agree, a kid has to be taller, like 55 inches, pretty much. Is
79 pounds.
Yeah, so it's a seat not for everyone. For those short squat kids, those bigger kids that are squatter, it's not going to work. Because the way where these hit them is just going to hit in the wrong place. They're going to either be too high or whatever. So that's the challenge of it. But it's a great seat otherwise. Okay, moving along. This is kind of a new seat for both of us. One of our colleagues at Children's told us about it, and so we researched. And actually, right after this talk, we have to give it back. This isn't our seat. So, but it's the Hercules Prime. Just like she said, this is a big selling point for a lot of families. It swivels, and you can imagine that the transfer is going to be rough for some of these bigger kids that fit in this, because you imagine they have to go up and then turn them like this. And this just allows you to bypass that. You just put them right in and swivel it. So that's a nice feature. And it offers a lot of different, like you were seeing over here, positioning options. Like all the things that you would need pretty much. So a lot of good options there. And it's soft, very soft.
Very cushy.
These all look soft, but this one really is soft. So. Okay, yeah, moving on to some of the Merit products, which I pretty much do at least 1 or 2 a week. We have the Churchill vest and a Churchill harness. I primarily stick to the harness because for behavioral kids that are that size, it's the safest option that we found. I was going to.
Okay, cool.
So it comes with like a locking clip there, the chest of, and a buckle guard at the bottom. Now it's kind of weird because that locking clip, you'll see it's like a yoke. Some families don't like that, if you can kind of see that. So that the kid's head goes through that part of it. And some kids don't tolerate it. And some families don't like the look of it. But without that, it pretty much is useless because they can just push it right over their head. So that's a very important part that has to be fitted right. Easy to move car to car. Both of them are. The vest. Now, if you want to talk about the vest, because I don't do as many vests.
Yeah, so the vest is really nice compared to some of the other ones on the market because, sorry, Velcro. It's got 3 Velcro pieces in the front for the vest. And then I can actually open it all the way up wide to get them in and out really, really easily. And then this actually can come off and be washed as well. So you can see there's a double belt in the back and it just runs through. There's another Velcro strap. So the biggest thing with this is air on the side of the larger measurement. So you're going to do a chest circumference. If they're right on that bubble, go with the bigger size.
Absolutely.
Multiple times we've had to reorder them.
Learn the hard way.
Now these are also a seatbelt install for a crash. So it has the latch system at the bottom, which is those lower anchors and the top tether, but that's just to keep the seat in position when they get in and out of it. When you actually put them in the car, you're going to use the actual normal seatbelt. And then on the top here, there's another little Velcro piece, and this is where the shoulder belt goes through. So it keeps it on the bony parts of the body instead of soft tissue. And it also, I don't know if you guys can see, it also has leg straps.
So very different than the harness.
So just a question, so I'm looking at it in the picture, does this go on top of a regular booster seat or?
No,
This is a booster.
that's
seat.
it.
So
That's the seat.
it's hard to see. So this is the 15-inch, there's 15-inch, 18-inch seat depth, but this is the booster part. Its sister product is the exact same thing without the booster part,
Which I'm about to talk about.
which she's about to talk about.
And that's pretty much the only option. The next one, the Chamberlain for our big kiddos.
Yeah.
I mean, kids like 250 pounds plus. I mean, that's the only option, which is kind of sad. We need to really work on that. Product development needs to be better at this because it's pretty easy to get out of. I mean, the harness, I would say, is very difficult. I mean, if you put it on me and hit it all locked up, I probably couldn't get out of it. The vest, the marriage Chamberlain vest is pretty easy. Now they can add, and ours does have the
We
buckles,
have the buckles added to ours.
but even a kid, if they have good fine motor, can just take those
Like,
right off.
yeah.
Now they can be sewn on the back too. Shane will do that. Shane's great. The guy who runs that
Marion.
company. He'll do almost anything for you. If it doesn't work, he'll try to figure it out. He's awesome. So, but those are some of the solutions and they don't work for all kids. So,
And something we forgot to mention, the escape proof harness or the escape proof package, quote unquote, can also go on the Roosevelt.
and
So-
actually it's on that one.
Yeah, so if you
Yeah.
have an escape artist, you either have the Roosevelt or this. Those are pretty much your only two options that. I mean, I'd say 99.9% of our kiddos have not been able to get out of it.
If they are, they're misusing it usually.
Yeah, usually it's misuse.
Yeah.
It's the biggest.
I'm gonna go over and then we're kind of running out of time. So I'll just do the easy on and then we can do.
I'm fine.
So the Easy On vest, you've probably heard of this one. This is probably the most known by most people because it's used by schools and it's very safe for school buses and that kind of thing. We were using the Easy On vest a lot and it's a great product. And it's especially great for the kids that like to reach forward or kick their feet because it's the only one that you can get ankle and wrist cuffs with to prevent that kind of thing. Some people don't look at that as a restraint, which it probably is, but some of these kids, actually choke people in front of them. So they need something to stop them from reaching. But the problem with it is it was really being misused. We were seeing just almost nobody was doing what you have to do, which is after 68 pounds, you need a certain kind of mount for this
Double tether.
piece of this piece of equipment. It's like a hole you have to actually put in the bottom of your car. So you're not going to be moving this from car to car if it's a behavioral kid. And what the families are doing, they just weren't doing that. And they were coming back and it's not safe. So we pretty much moved to the Merit products because of that. But that being said, it is appropriate for some kiddos. The Hope beds for kids, little itty bitties, they don't have really good, they're not able to sit up or tolerate sitting up. It's pretty much the only option. I'm going to kind of run through these a little quick just because we're running out of time. This is an out of pocket product called the Ride Safer for our milder sensory kids or something that a family could pretty much without the use of some of these, real expensive products. We recommend that for them.
Backup for dad's car when mom and dad are divorced and you need two different seats.
Yeah, it's a good intermittent product for those families that are waiting for a car seat. And then this is what Connie was talking about, the escape proof option that you can get for commercial seats. It's not compatible with all of them, but you can make a commercial seat and escape proof just with this little add-on from Merit. So I'm going to pretty much quickly go through my case study and then hand it over to Connie. My case study involves a 14-year-old female named Lacey with a diagnosis of autism with severe behaviors. Her current equipment, when I met her inpatient at the College Hill campus, which is where we see our severe behavior kids, was an Easy On vest. It was used in the family car. And just like I was talking about the Easy On vest before, there was three things that they were doing wrong. She was too big for the vest, she was getting out of the vest, and they didn't have the mount. So all those things, I mean, this basically was, you might as well not have anything in that car. So when I saw her initially, I took measurements and pretty much what I do, I see them inpatient. And then if I can do an eval before they're discharged, fine. But if not, the family comes back for an outpatient appointment and I complete everything that we need to complete. I just give the family some options after seeing them inpatient. But the problem with this one is we set up an outpatient appointment and the family never showed up. So we had to wait till Lacey got readmitted. So it's lucky for us, not for her, that she got readmitted, because then I was able to do the evaluation with the family. And I chose a Churchill with positioning harness that you saw over there, because she was around 100 pounds and she could get out of everything. She was a smart girl. She could get out of everything. It was pretty much the only option we had for her. So did the eval, set everything up, went through funding, outpatient was scheduled, family didn't show up. So recurring theme. So I had to wait for Lacey to get admitted again. And when she was admitted again, I was able to meet the family inpatient again at our unit, fit her, educate the family on the safety features of this product, put it in their car, install it, and make sure that they understood how to use it properly. And really, this case study, the main thing I wanted to just highlight is, if I wasn't CPST certified, I don't think it could have happened. It would have been very difficult because we would have had to get someone from trauma services there, and just the availability of this family was just all over the place. So it kind of just shows how our methods have been more effective. I'm gonna.
All right, so
Connie.
I see a lot more of the positional kids. So my case is a positional kiddo. 16-year-old female. She's not 16 anymore, but she's about to turn 20 tomorrow. 16-year-old female with Rett syndrome. She had recently had a spinal fusion, so her positioning had changed a little bit. The family frequently travels to Disney World, and she's in her car seat for 12 to 18 hours at a time. She developed a sacral wound during her last trip. And one of the requests of the family was to possibly have it to be air travel approved. So we did an evaluation, and the two that we considered was the special tomato car seat, which is FAA approved, and the Churchill. And we ended up going with the Churchill only because she was right at the end of that growth of that special tomato seat. I think she measured at like 15 and the max was 16. So she wasn't going to be able to use that car seat for a long period of time. And due to her age, it was not something that we were expecting rapid growth for her. But still, we weren't sure if seizure medication changed or things like that, that she wouldn't gain weight and get a little bit wider. So we ended up going with the Churchill due to the ease of use. Now she does have a wheelchair adapted van. However, her older siblings are highly involved in her care, and they wanted the capability to take her in their own car without her wheelchair, or her manual chair, not her other chair. And we were able to get her wound healed, and she has not gotten another wound since. And she's been to Disney World at least a dozen times since then. And then here is a picture of Miss Chloe in her car seat, so you can kind of see how she's positioned. Now we ended up doing the vest option of the Churchill, just because we really wanted that nice wraparound to keep her upright. So in summary, adaptive car seats are CRT. They are complex rehab technology. A safe and proper fitting car seat can be life-changing for a patient and a family. I will say the look on a family's face when you hand them a car seat and they know their kid is properly installed and they don't have to worry about pulling over on the highway or getting attacked while they're driving, it's the best feeling in the world. So when in doubt, refer to the experts. If you don't know what you're doing, please find an expert in your area. Having an improperly installed car seat is just as bad as not having them restrained at all. And in our opinion, there should be no longer a missing link in the 24-hour positioning care. Car seats are part of postural care. And we just want to say thanks to Cincinnati Children's and the Probin Center. Thanks to the trauma services team that we work with every single day, Michelle, Angie, and Stephanie, and Missy Talley, and Beth McCarty, and Donna Lake. as they helped us with this presentation. Anybody have any questions? Hands up. Maddie, do you want to do the, please? Can you turn the mic on? Great, thank you. Just so everybody can hear. Thank you.
All right. Code is,
There were questions. I think I was having you take the microphone to there for good. That's okay. Thank you. They were not there yet.
You're right.
do you have any recommendations for kids with poor head control?
Usually for the kids with poor head control, I don't have it on here, but the Roosevelt has a really nice headrest. I don't know where it went, to be honest. It's similar to this one, and it actually has the option of getting like a cap that actually velcros to the back. If not, we do recommend the Hensinger collar. However, as a CPST, I do recommend you ask for it without the metal in the back, because it can be something that can be bad in a crash. Sometimes just a C collar, like just a soft C collar off of Amazon is a lot of times what I'm also recommending. But also if they don't have them on here, but a lot of them have tilt bars as well. So you can actually tilt them back a little bit. And then usually the recommendation is that your seat of your car does not click back more than 3 times. And then in addition to the tilt of the car seat. So for crash test rating, no more than 3 clicks. But obviously that's best practice. What you have to do for as a parent and as a therapist is what you have to do.
On the Churchill with the anti-lock buckles,
Yeah.
anti-escape.
Yeah.
What solution do you have for the kid who breaks out of that? I put a kid in one.
Yeah.
And his mother sent me a text within 48 hours that he had broken that escape proof part on that Churchill and was out. I don't know. She sent me.
The check clip part?
I can show you the pictures after the class if you
Yeah.
want, but whatever the escape proof part is, he broke it and was out of the car seat.
So it comes with a tool and you have to use that tool. And if you don't engage the escape proof part, it won't work. I can show you how it works. Basically, it's a normal chest clip for a car seat. And then there's just a little white piece that's in this, that you basically just rotate it so that you can't press the buttons. So we can look at it and we can help you problem solve.
Okay.
Yeah. Very few kids can get out of this. He probably figured it out. That's sometimes.
The neck, I said like the yoke, I call it the yoke, I know a better
Yeah.
word for it, wasn't tight enough.
Wasn't tight enough.
Because if it was tight enough, he wouldn't be able to do that. And some kids have long enough fingernails that they can actually open it up. So you have to watch that. I've had some kids, they're really smart. They have little pieces of whatever in the back that they can just open it up too. So
Yeah.
parents really have to monitor all that.
Yes.
Is there a list or registry of specialists by state?
You
There's-
can go on NHTSA's website.
There's that website. Yeah, the one website, the National.
Yeah, National Highway Transportation. So
Good
it's
one.
the website, National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. They usually have one. If not, you can always contact, like, you can ask your local fire station usually, which are the fit stations. And ask if there's someone else that you could contact, or if they know someone that you could contact and find someone that would be qualified in your area.
And I thought we had that up here.
It's at the very, very end, I think.
Is it? Okay, well, don't look at the screen. Make you dizzy. Woo. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I had a question. I had a teenager that I was trying to put in a car seat, and he has a really bad IT wound. And the only way I'm getting his IT wound under control is that he's in a ride, custom seating, completely offloaded.
Yep.
But then they needed an adapted car seat. And I didn't really know what to do for that particular child.
I mean, unfortunately, the recommendation would be for them to not ride in the car seat as long as possible until the wound's healed. That's usually what, if you ask the wound care team, that's what they would say. Obviously, that's not always realistic. Unfortunately, anything that's added underneath the bottom, it voids the crash testing on stuff. So it's usually recommended they just don't travel during that time. Or if they're able to travel in their ride seat, do that like in their wheelchair, that would be best. But yeah.
There's one over here.
Oh, hold on. She has the microphone.
She's got the mic.
There's some vests like that.
There are vests that lay down and are made by Easy On. However, they only go to a certain height and weight and they are not like big kid approved. So it would be like if they're really little, like under 3, you could do that. We didn't bring that one with us, but yeah.
Very complicated.
Yeah.
You see how easy these, how complicated. these things are.
That's one that I would go to my trauma therapist, say, okay, guys, this is what I got. What can we come up with? So that's where we're very fortunate that we have the 3 ladies that we do that that's when we would problem solve that one through. So
Is it on?
it should be.
So, do you guys know from a product standpoint, since the rear facing Quokka is gone, is anybody looking at doing another one? Do you know?
I'm gonna say no, and the reason would be, yes, they are safest rear facing as long as possible. We know that, everyone worries about breaking legs. You're actually more likely to break your legs in, forward facing than rear facing.
Right.
The research tells us that. We've heard rumblings of the possibility that they're gonna start making all these car seats also be side crash impact tested. So it also might be that they're waiting to retest, because it is like, what, $600,000 to crash test?
Oh, yeah.
It's a ridiculous amount of money to crash test anything. So yeah, something else to consider. So I'm gonna go over here and I'll come back to you, okay? All right, somebody over here had a question.
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Oh, same thing?
With the Quokka being taken off the market, there's nothing for kids under 25 pounds.
So in that case, we would do a commercial car seat and then we would do whatever adaptations are necessary. Like I said, rear facing is still always the safest as long as possible.
Right.
And sometimes those Dianos, we can keep them rear facing a little bit longer. So, yes, ma'am.
What, sorry, PICS code are you using when you're billing insurance?
I would say, I think we're using the miscellaneous code, the E1399. Okay, yeah. We're from Ohio, but we're tri-state, so we're Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. And for those 3 states, we're primarily using the E1399. Yeah.
I just wanted to say for the head control, whoever had that question, the carrot is crash tested to 30 degrees of recline. You can drive. So if you have a captain's chair or you can go into 30 degrees of recline. And then also for somebody asked about CPSTs in the area, go to Safe Kids Worldwide.
Kids
And
Worldwide,
that
yeah.
is where you can search everyone by state that made their profile public.
Great
Yes.
resource.